From the ISR studios, it's Louis Live. Now here's your hosts, Raphael Geller and Moshe Guia.
Welcome to Louis Live. Today we're going to have a great show, a really big soccer show. Tommy Smith at 11:30 a.m. EST, and Mark Serber from Fox Sports International. Today we have a special guest, or I guess not a guest. We have someone who's going to be co-hosting with me for the first hour. And we're going to be talking a lot about sports in the United States. So I want to welcome Moshe. How you doing?
Doing good today. How are you?
I am doing great. I'm doing very good. Very excited about the show. Very excited about the direction of the show and where we're going and what we're doing. And I wanted to thank you on air for your help the past week. Thank you. I want to start off and talk to you a little bit about the NBA playoffs that have been going on right now. We had an interesting discussion last night about the Heat and I guess you could say the Thunder. And you were saying that you think the Thunder are going to be a perennial powerhouse for next year. So could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at the guys they've got now, Durant, Westbrook, whatever, they're all pretty good. They're all young, up-and-coming players. I think that Durant could become a defensive force given his size, his speed. He's very long. You see how towards the end of some games, the Thunder were matching him up against Kobe, and he was doing a good job against him. I think that's just a great recipe for a good dynasty, and who knows, maybe they could become like the Bulls used to be.
Right. I will respectfully disagree with you, just because Durant, there's no one on that team can pass, in my opinion, and that's something that you always need. You need a good point guard, and I agree with you. I think they're going to be good, but Durant can't pass, and Russell Westbrook can't pass to save his life. He's just a good shooter. I mean, he does have some games where he has a lot of assists, but he's not a point-on-point, point guard. He's not like a Rajon Rondo or a Steve Nash or a Deron Williams. He likes to shoot the ball out, and he gets a lot of issues from the media. But we are going to be having a special guest today. David Dobin's going to be joining us in about 5 minutes to talk some New York baseball and all that East Coast baseball. So we're very excited to have him on. So we're going to go to a quick 2-minute commercial. And when we're back, we'll be on with David. So please stay with us on Louis Live. And just to talk about later in the show, we are going to be having Tommy Smith on, and Tommy Smith, Mark Serber, and at 10:30 we're going to be having on Sanjay. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his last name. We're going to let him help us with that. But he's a great guy. He's from NFL Radio and also works for Bleacher Report. So NFL Network Radio, right, Moshe?
Yep.
Right. So we're going to talk to him. I guess Moshe is going to do a lot of that segment, and we're going to come back after the commercials.
You're tuned in to the only all-sports talk network in the Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Body and Soul Gym in the heart of Talpiot. Great machines, excellent staff, and wonderful classes such as Pilates, yoga, and kickboxing. Give them a call at 02-678-8861. Once again, that's 02-678-8861. www.body-soul.co.il. Once again, that's www.body-soul.co.il. That's Body and Soul in the heart of Talpiot, which is great for your body and your soul.
You're already using a credit card every day. Why not feel good every time you make a purchase? When using the HAS Advantage Support Israel Visa card, a percentage of each purchase you make will be donated to your choice of 24 Israeli-based charities, while still earning a reward point for every dollar spent. But wait, these rewards are even better than the standard rewards you get, especially when using them towards Israel travel, with the best conversion rate on El Al's Matmeed frequent flyer program. Earn double points at some of your favorite supermarkets and restaurants in the U.S., as well as discounts all over Israel. If you love traveling and supporting Israel, HAS Advantage is the card for you. Just give us a call toll-free at 1-866-6-ISRAEL. Sign up right now with the code ISR10 to earn 2,500 bonus points. That's 1-866-647-7235. HAS Advantage. Earn rewards. Support Israel. Offer valid for U.S. citizens only. Terms and conditions do apply. When dialing from within Israel, please dial 1-800-200-818.
Israel Sports Dynamics specializes in football consulting, equipment, uniforms, and more. Great brands such as Nike, Russell Athletics, Schutt Sports Products, and many more. Just one call away. With over 30 years coaching experience with university and professional athletes, Ari Hill, owner of ISD, can advise you for all your sports needs. Call 054-581-3248. That's 054-581-3248, or visit our website at www.isdisrael.com. If that's not easy enough, click on the ISD banner on the Israel Sports Radio website and be part of the game.
Are you tired of paying for expensive gym memberships that you don't use? Are you frustrated by not seeing results? It's time for the X1. Israel Gym Systems is proud to launch the X1 suspension and bodyweight training system. Lose weight, build muscle, improve balance, coordination, and flexibility. With your purchase of the X1, you'll receive a free membership to IsraelGym.com and access to our archives of videos and exercise plans. Sign up today at www.israelgym.com and get ready for the new you. Israel Gym X1. Higia Hazman.
Broadcasting live from Israel.
IsraelSportsRadio.com.
All right, so we're back on Louis Live and Israel Sports Radio, on Israel Sports Radio. And today we're going to have a special show. Sorry about the weird introduction. We're just trying to figure out some stuff, but we're good to go. We're good to have a good show. We're going to be having on David Dobin in about 2 minutes to talk about New York baseball. We had him on yesterday. He's a great guy, so we're very excited to have him on. At 10:30, we're going to have Sanjay on from the Bleacher Report and NFL Network Radio. At 11 o'clock, we're going to be having Mark Serber on from Fox Sports International. He's a soccer color commentary guy. And then at 11:30, very, very special guest and a great friend of the network. And as he likes to say, he's from Ireland, which is the 13th tribe. That's a quote from Tommy Smith, ESPN's Tommy Smith. So we have a great show to end the week. We have great shows next week. We'll preview that at the end of the show. And right now, we are going to dial up David. And it's going to be interesting to dial him up because yesterday we were talking about how much A-Rod has struggled and how bad his season's been. And what's interesting is that he actually made a statement last night saying that he was going to pick up his game. And then that night he had 2 home runs. Last night he had 2 home runs. So we're going to start that off with David. So we're dialing him up right now. And
hello?
Hi, am I speaking with David?
Yes, how you doing, Raphael?
Good, I'm good. Thank you for coming on Louis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
You're doing great?
I'm in shock. Just yesterday, I think we talked about A-Rod.
That's what I was just telling our listeners that, can you please kind of follow up on that and tell our listeners what I was saying?
Well, it's funny because, I bought into it too. This was a story weeks in the making, and it seems over the last few days, everyone finally accepted that Alex Rodriguez may no longer be a slugger, that he's still a good hitter, he's able to get on base, but that his game had changed. So yesterday, before the game, he was telling the assembled media that he felt something was coming on, that something was going to happen. And then he goes out and hits 2 home runs. He was admittedly facing Will Smith, who had curiously been called up the previous couple of days.
Right.
This was his first major league start. He's not even a prospect. He's one of those guys that you just keep in your organization for depth purposes. For some reason, the Royals decided to start him over Luis Mendoza. I don't quite understand it. So, look, he hit the 2 home runs. He's got the bat. He's able to do that when he's facing a really bad pitcher. But I'm not going to all of a sudden declare his season turned around.
Right. I mean, no. And as you mentioned, playing the Royals, no offense to all Kansas City Royal fans out there, but really not the most impressive team. But it is a good thing for A-Rod. It's, could help his confidence. I don't think he's had a multi-home run game this season. It's his 60th of his career, which is really a spectacular number. And as you mentioned, it really kind of shows that he backed up his words. He made that announcement to the press, I believe, before the game, as you said, and went out, hit 2 home runs, and got Yankee fans excited. So, as you said, realistically, this doesn't really mean anything. This is baseball. It's a long season. He needs to prove it. He needs to maybe have a week or two where he hits 300 or, gets a lot of hits or gets a lot of RBI. So we'll see what happens with that. Another huge story, which I think actually is bigger. I'm not even sure really if it's a story because the Steinbrenners are denying it, but could you give us some input on these rumors about the Yankees being for sale?
This actually is something I have not heard. I have not heard such rumors. I have heard rumors of them actually really getting committed to that $189 million, the tax ceiling. That's something that's been discussed all season. Yesterday I was actually hearing someone discuss the possibility that they may have to lose Robinson Cano because of financial issues.
Right.
But I have not heard anything about the team being for sale.
Okay, well, that's interesting. It's featured on Yahoo today, so you should check that out. And I was seeing it all over Twitter, and people were joking, $3 billion team for sale. And obviously, it's not that much, but it's up there. It's probably over $1 billion. I know the Redskins are at $1.6 billion is what they're worth right now. And of course, Dan Snyder, who's a Jew, gotta say that, who's a Jew, he owns the squad. But let's just let's kind of hypothetically say that this is true. As a person covering the New York Yankees, what would that be like to not have a Steinbrenner under power? I mean, he's probably been the owner there as long as you've been reporting, or at least someone in the family has been owner there as long as you've been covering the Yankees, David. So what would it be like for you if there was a new owner?
Well, I will say this. And this is kind of what I was just saying. It does, although the name remains the same, it feels most certainly ever since Hal and Hank Steinbrenner took over the team really in 2007, starting with the completely bungled A-Rod negotiations in which a guy who came back to them hat in hand after making a mistake somehow got more money than he had previously been making. Hal and Hank Steinbrenner are not their father, both in terms of their baseball sense, their ability to make baseball decisions. Whenever they interfere with Brian Cashman, it's a bad thing. But also, as I was saying, George Steinbrenner never cared about the luxury tax. This is something that people have been talking for 5 years, again, ever since Hank and Hal really started taking the reins. There were concerns that the days of the Yankees ignoring financial constraints were going to come to an end. And those days are coming. So it seems to me that the kids are not fully committed to their father's legacy. This was started to talk about this idea that they might be for sale. Again, that they'd actually go into it, I didn't expect. But when the Dodgers got sold for $2 billion, what was it? For about $2 billion?
$2.075 billion, right.
Huh?
Yeah, a little over $2 billion.
Yeah. When that happened, the first reaction was, if that's what the Dodgers are worth, what could the Yankees be worth?
Right.
And who knows, maybe, and it seems that the Steinbrenners now are exploring that exact question. Can they fetch $4 to $5 billion for the team? It's a possibility, and again, they aren't as committed in a baseball sense as George was. It's very possible that they could be looking at this as a chance to sell the team at its peak value and get out.
Yeah, and That's just scary. I mean, the Steinbrenner's been there since, the late 70s? When did he buy the team? The 80s?
70s, yes.
That's what I thought.
1973, I believe, bought the team for about $10 million.
Well, that's just scary and funny to think. Obviously, there's inflation, but I think even with inflation, that doesn't come close to the estimated 3 or 4 or 5 billion that they're going to sell it for. But it's just, and Steinbrenner died. That was very sad. And then his sons, as you just said, people aren't as sure that they're as serious about this as George. I mean, because there's not a more dedicated owner really in all sports as George. Then his sons take over, and I think there's 2 or 3 of them who are really in charge. And I think there's one of them who does most of the stuff. But with the interviews with him in the media the last couple of years, it just seems like he doesn't have the same feelings about the Yankees that his father did. Maybe that's because he's younger. Maybe needs some years to get into it. We don't know. But I will say that in the report, the Steinbrenner said this is absolutely false. We'll never do that. Our father just died two years ago. And, but this was just stuff that was in the, Daily News today, up in your end of the world, in the New York Daily News. And, I don't know if that's a credible news source. I think it is, but.
Oh, it is. Yeah, the Daily News is credible.
So, we've had a couple, we've had Dick Weiss on the show. He's a great, great reporter. I believe he works for the New York Daily News covering college ball. But, I don't know. This is a very interesting thing. I want to talk to you a little bit. I know we touched up on the David Ortiz thing yesterday, and I kind of want to get your part 2 thought of it because you've had now maybe another day to think about it. I asked some more people about it on our show yesterday and got some mixed reviews, or mixed answers, I'd say. So do you have more to add about that before we let you go?
No, again, to me, it just feels like something finally exploded. It's clear that the lovable face of the franchise hasn't been the happiest guy with the franchise. And, again, the fact that he's been able to put it on the back burner for, I don't know how long this has been going on, the fact that it's never bubbled up before, maybe he and the front office can work something out and keep the distraction to a minimum. But when a guy comes out and claims that the front office has disrespected him, isn't that essentially a trade demand?
It is, but do you trade a guy like that when you have Carl Crawford, Jacoby Ellsbury? The list goes on and on of injuries. Crawford, I've been hearing that the risks, people really don't know what's going on. Ellsbury is going to be out at least until July, August. So, would you trade him now? Would it be the best time to do that?
Well, from the Red Sox, yeah. And obviously, from the team's perspective, they want to hold on to him as long as possible. And again, the fact that he's felt this way before, but it's never really affected his performance, should give them confidence that he can continue to produce even in this uncomfortable situation. But if they can get a reasonable deal for him, I think it would be best for both sides to end this partnership.
Right. And, I know a lot. This guy, as I think you made this comment, David, 10 years, I think this was you, tell me if it was. You said that in 10 years passed by, people will remember him for everything he did. After all, 2 World Series with this team when the team couldn't get one for 80, 90 years. So this guy, maybe now people don't think of him as a legend. I know people do, but I think in maybe 50 years, he might be considered one of the greatest Red Sox of all time.
Well, from the story, even if his overall play may not back that up, the Red Sox do have a deep history, but for sure he will be remembered as one of the guys who broke the curse. He'll always have that place in Red Sox lore, even if, again, things haven't gotten terribly ugly here yet, but even if things go downhill this year, it's not going to affect the way people remember him. He will always be, for the Red Sox, the lovable hero, the big guy who just came over and saved the franchise. So that's pretty much secure. But if usually you don't necessarily want to impact the next, you don't want negatives to be associated with him if this continues to go downhill. So that you want. I think if they can get a reasonable deal, maybe it's time to let him go.
Right, but who's gonna? I mean, he's an old guy. Who's gonna? What can they get from him? Are they gonna get prospects? Is that what you're saying in a reasonable deal, or a guy who's gonna have an impact immediately?
Yeah,
prospects.
Well, no, I think the best you're going to get for him is you have a team like, say, the Yankees are kind of searching for offense.
Who that would?
You have a team.
What would be your David? What would be your thoughts if he did that?
No, I don't think that deal is ever going to happen. The Yankees and Red Sox are not going to make a deal that high profile.
Right.
But if you have a team that needs a little extra punch and is trying to make a playoff push, they will give up a prospect or two for David Ortiz. And the Red Sox, who, much like the Yankees, are kind of an old team, and even their younger players are very injury-prone, you don't think they could use maybe an extra starter who could come up in a year or two and fill out the rotation?
Interesting point. Always good stuff from David Dobin. David, thanks for coming on 2 days in a row. We really appreciate it. And I'm sure we will talk to you in the next 7 to 10 days.
All right. Sounds great. Have a great one, Rana.
You too. Okay, that was David Dobin. Great guy from New York. Has a great radio show out there covering baseball. We're going to do about an 8-minute segment on Israeli basketball since the Final Four championship tonight. Huge Apollo fan. Right here from Jerusalem, Israel. Shalom Simcha will be joining us right now to discuss some Maccabi Tel Aviv, some Apol Yerushalayim or Jerusalem for our listeners in the U.S. of A. And this kid is a loyal fan, guys, and it's hard for him to watch Apol struggle as they have the past a long time, years and years and years. So we're very excited to have him on. We're dialing him up right now. It's going to be very short, about 5-7 minutes. And then my man Moshe is going to kind of talk to Sanjay about a lot of great stuff in the NFL. Hi, Shalom. Am I speaking with Shalom Simcha?
Hi, Rafi.
I'm good. Shalom, you're on Israel Sports Radio and LewisLive.com, or excuse me, Lewis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's great to have you on. Of course, you've been in the studio with me, so we have about 7 minutes, and we're going to make the best out of 7 minutes. So I want to ask you about your thoughts about tonight's big game at 9 o'clock local time, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard, Maccabi Ashdod versus Maccabi Tel Aviv. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Listen, Rafi, it's going to be, the game is only, Maccabi's going to run the game. If Maccabi's not going to play their team game, then Ashdod has a good chance, just like they beat them in the regular season. Yeah. But if Maccabi, plays with Richie and Chayan plays his game and James takes his rebounds and his blocks, and Ashdod's going to have a really hard time.
Absolutely. As you mentioned, Maccabi is one of two teams to beat, or Maccabi Ashdod is one of two teams to beat Maccabi Tel Aviv in Nokia. Who was the other team, Shalom?
Oh, it was Apol Jerusalem.
Apol Jerusalem got the new coach in the middle of the year. Oded Katash resigned. Sharon Drucker, who led them to, I believe, a Euro Cup a few years back. What's next for Apol? Have you heard any inside scoop about what's going to happen with this team? Which Americans are going to be leaving? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I think all the Americans are about to leave. Randall and Thomas, especially. Randall didn't deliver in the Euro Cup when Apol needed him, and then in the playoffs against Chulon. DJ Strawberry has up and downs. He gives a cold shoulder to Drucker and wasn't a team player. I think we need some good quality foreigners to come play for Apol to bring back the pride to this team.
Right, and I mean, I'll give a shout out now to Yuval Naimi, who's a great player, and he is Israeli. He's probably, arguably, the best point guard in Israel. Maybe, I don't know if I want to say that. I'll say top 3 for sure, just to make you happy. But, I mean, you can build around him. This guy's a guy who can score 18, 20 points, and that's difficult in European-style game for our listeners in America who think that that's not a lot. I mean, in Europe, if you can do that consistently, then you're a good player. But one of the issues that I've noticed this year, and I want to get your thoughts on it, Shalom, is that he's really gone through stretches where he just gets mad, gets too emotional, makes stupid fouls. So how does he improve that? How does he kind of mature over the next year? Because he's kind of cost Hapoel in some big games.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's combined between two different things. I think Naimi has a little bit of an ego that he's been in Hapoel for the past 4 years, and he's Danny Klein's brother-in-law, and he feels like Hapoel is his and he can do whatever he wants. He needs to learn that Hapoel it's a symbol for a lot of fans and a lot of people in Jerusalem. He has to understand that he has to grow up and mature. I also think that Drucker needs to be a little bit more strict with him. He has to, when in Chulon you saw it, Naimi missed a couple of threes and he just let him keep on going. And I think it was either the fourth game when Chulon went up to the Final Four. Guni was playing really well, and Drucker just played with Naimi and gave him too much credit. And I think Naimi needs to be a little bit more, have a little less string than he has right now.
Right, and I mean, the sky's the limit talent-wise. This guy can really shoot. He seems to struggle in driving a little bit. I think that's maybe because he's kind of small.
He definitely needs to grow physically.
Yeah, he needs to grow some muscle, especially with these big guys from America. And I think that really was a problem in the Cholon series because they had those guys down low for Cholon. Even Israelis like Sean Daniel.
Right, Sean Daniel is he's really a physical, tough guy. And Ron Lewis, he's also fast, he's quick, he's very physical. And he has to build up and get a lot stronger.
Right, because
definitely, like you say, the sky's the limit with him.
It's very clear that when he gets an open shot or if he's ISO with a point guard who's not as fast as him, he's going to dominate. But I definitely agree with you and think that there really needs to be a lot of changes in Hapoel because it's about time that they do something. It's been a while. I know the fans there are very loyal. I've been to a lot of games. Very, very fun home crowd. But speaking of rival of Hapoel, it has to be Maccabi. Hapoel Tel Aviv is now going to be playing in the Premier League next year. So do you think that might kind of take away from Hapoel and Maccabi's rivalry since Hapoel Tel Aviv will now be playing Maccabi?
Actually, I don't know. I think it's a great thing. I don't think it'll take away from the rivalry. It'll just make more interesting games. I think the first year for Hapoel Tel Aviv will be hard. They're not going to have as much money as any of the teams, and they'll have a lot of heart. But I don't know how far they're going to go. But I feel like it's great because we have Rishon, who you see, who's the second year there in the Final Four. Ashdod's going to be great next year as well. Maccabi, of course. Hapoel always aims Galil. Now Hapoel Tel Aviv, that's 6-7 teams that are finally going to be, very well-based teams in the Premier League, where we can finally have a good league and not, waste our evenings on some teams that we just can't watch. It's a disgrace for Israeli basketball. So it's a great thing that Hapoel Tel Aviv is coming back to us.
It's true, and I mean, you look at it from the top to the bottom. Hapoel Tel Aviv, we just had Curtis Kelly on. A lot of people don't know about him, but he was a star in America at Kansas State. If he stays with Hapoel, he told us he doesn't know what he's doing yet, but if he does, this guy's going to be a monster next year. He's friends with a lot of guys on all the premier teams, and he played with them in college, so this guy's a guy we should look out for. He's pretty much Hapoel Tel Aviv's best foreign player. But, yeah, you said it best. I mean, you look from Habika, who just came up. They had some great American players, Frank Robinson, Delaney, who really are great guys, and guys who were able to beat good teams. I mean, they beat teams that are in the top 3, top 4. And Ashkelon this year started off really hot, then kind of fell down. They had a couple injuries, but they have some great talent. Maccabi Rishon. I mean, it's a great time to be Israeli and be proud of a lot of Israelis in the league because it used to be, the best players were all American and there was nothing in the league. But now we got Ochayon and we have on Choron Roth or Roth or however I guess we're going to say in English, we'll say Roth. There's so many great Israeli players. Big man, Kadir, I love Kadir, Ishai Kadir, who plays for Hapoel. So it's going to be a great season. It's going to be a great game tonight. Can you give us a prediction? Who's going to win and by how much?
I think it's going to be a tight game, and I think Tapira is going to get another chance. you never know, but I think Maccabi is going to take it. Maccabi Tel Aviv is going to take it, but I hope Tapira gets some pride tonight.
Right, and as you mentioned, Tapira, one of the top 20 scorers of all time. He's played, I believe, for your Hapoel Jerusalem squad.
Yep. That was 5 years ago. It was pretty tough.
Yeah, it's always tough in Jerusalem for anything, even Beitar. And we'll see what happens. Shalom, we got to let you go. Thank you for joining us on short notice. We really appreciate it, and we'd love to have you back on in the future.
All right, thank you so much. Have a good day.
See you, Shalom. All right, that was Shalom Simcha live from Jerusalem as well. A great segment with him examining some Israeli hoops. We are going to take a commercial right now. On the other side, Sanjay from the NFL Network Radio and featured columnist on the Bleacher Report, which Jim Williams also writes for. So we are very excited to have him on. So please stay with us, and we'll be back in about 2 minutes.
RealSportsRadio.com.
When the bases are loaded, smart investors don't step back. Find out what they're doing from international money expert Doug Goldstein on the Goldstein on Gelt Show, Mondays at 7 p.m.
We're standing outside El Gacho restaurant here in downtown Jerusalem, and we see another happy, satisfied customer. Ma'am, what is your name?
Kashet?
And what'd you think of El Gacho restaurant?
Oh, incredible. I'm not much of a meat eater, but when I do eat meat, I go out to El Gacho. My husband brought me here for an anniversary dinner, and I wasn't crazy about going to a meat place for an anniversary dinner, but the meat was so tender that I had to come back a second time, so here I am for the second time.
Well, you heard it right from the cow's mouth. El Gaucho in downtown Jerusalem.
This is Tamar Cass, and you're listening to Israel Sports Radio.
DJ Venom, DJ Venom, DJ Venom, DJing parties throughout Israel, birthday parties, weddings, club events, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, and much more. You pick the type of music, and DJ Venom will turn your event to the party of the year. Available Sunday through Thursday. Call 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. That's 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. Book your party today. That's DJ Venom.
This is Dimitri Salita, and you're listening to IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Broadcasting live from Jerusalem. IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Back on Louis Live, I had a great segment with David. Wow, excuse me for the hiccups. David Dobin at 10 a.m. local time in the United States. Then at 5:15 local time here, we had a special guest from Jerusalem. Huge Hapoel Jerusalem fan. Follows them every game, watches everything, and a huge Israeli basketball fan. Really knows this stuff. We had the pleasure of having him on. Next, we're going to be calling a very special guest. Moshe, tell our listeners a little bit about our guest.
Our guest is going to be Sanjay Kirpalani, and he's got a radio show on the NFL Radio Network on XM Sirius. He's also got another radio show. He writes a lot on the Bleacher Report about college ball, a lot of Alabama. He's at Troy University, so he's big into Alabama football. They've got a good program there, obviously. But today we're going to be talking to him about the NFL, and there's been a lot of news coming out of there lately.
Right, definitely a lot of news out of the South, out of New Orleans, as the people down there say it. I was just in the South last summer. Good times. Not really, but we are going to be dialing him up right now, and we're very excited to talk to him. I'm going to start off with one or two questions about college football, and then Moshe is going to go ahead.
All right.
So we're dialing him up right now. He's in Chicago, and we're very excited to have him on. Hi, am I speaking with Sanjay?
Yes.
Sanjay, you're on Louis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
Doing good. How about yourself?
I am doing great. We've had a great show. We're having we're going to continue to have a great show after you. We're going to talk some soccer, but we're going to start right now and talk some college ball. I saw that you just put up an article on the Bleacher Report about Alabama and Nick Saban, what he's been doing since he's been there. I want to talk to you about this Alabama team. They lost some key guys to the draft, number 3, the running back and linebackers and all that. But from what I hear, they're going to be getting one of the best recruiting classes in the country. They have one of the best recruiting classes in the country. So could you touch up on what we should expect from the Tide next year, or I guess in a few months?
Well, same team, different year, and same expectations. They're high in Tuscaloosa. You mentioned the talent that they lost, but if you study, I got to go to their spring game roughly a month ago, and you wouldn't be able to tell that this was a new team. It just seems like the next wave is coming along there. But there's a lot of guys that may not be household names, but there's plenty of talent. A lot of projections have them in the top 5 in the country coming up. So, they're looking like a strong chance to be in the mix to repeat as national champions. And you mentioned the recruiting class. They've got a wave coming in that was the top group in the country last year. And a lot of those guys have already made an early impact, guys like running back T.J. Yeldon and a wide receiver named Amari Cooper. Both those guys had already enrolled and should be big contributors this fall. So, expect the Tide to keep rolling.
Right, and I mean, Nick Saban's done such a phenomenal job there, doing a great job at LSU at his time there and everywhere he's been. Next thing I want to talk to you about, and I was kind of excited to talk to you about this, you went to Troy University. I'm sure a lot of people say, where is Troy or what is Troy? And I was telling my co-host here, Troy is home of Pro Bowl defensive end DeMarcus Ware. So is that your answer for people when they ask you?
Absolutely. That's kind of a big thing. Where is Troy? And you're right. It's home to DeMarcus Ware. OCU Manura for the New York Giants is also from there. And actually, there's 3 members of the New York Giants that are Troy grads. There's a small school, but a big tradition in terms of sending teams to the NFL and sending players to the NFL. So. Yes, that's DeMarcus is probably the most famous alumni, and he's a great ambassador for the school. I know him personally, and he's we couldn't be prouder of what Troy has become.
Oh, absolutely, and he's just done an amazing job on this Dallas team. Honestly, Sanjay, if you look at this Dallas team the past couple of years, and you think of the bright spots and things that have been very consistent when Tony Romo's injured or when the receiving corps is not doing a good job or when the corner, there's been so many problems with this team. That DeMarcus Ware is always going to be a Pro Bowler and he's always going to give you big numbers, right?
Absolutely. And, it's funny about DeMarcus, kind of some background on him. When he got to Troy, he was one of the last guys recruited. He came to Troy as a 6'4", 200-pound athlete that they didn't know where they were going to play. And 4 years later, he gets into the league and, as a defensive end, that's just a freakish athlete. And you mentioned how consistent he is. You can make the case that he's been the best defensive end in the league since he's been there. And one thing about him that you never have to worry about when you look at star players, he does not have that attitude or that ego. He's a guy that's had to work for everything that he's gotten. And nobody works harder than DeMarcus Ware at being a great player. So regardless of what's going on with that team, you don't have to worry about him in terms of being an effort guy. He's always going to be a guy that brings it every single play.
Right, and speaking of the Cowboys team, Jerry Jones kind of came out with a statement the other day saying now or never. So hopefully DeMarcus has a really good year. I've been a huge fan of him. It's really funny, Sanjay. One of my friends is his first cousin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so who lives in Indiana. So I've heard a lot about him even when he was in college, and I'm a huge college football fan. So I remember watching some of those games where, Troy was on ESPN a couple times here and there, and he was featured. So I thought I'd touch up with you on that a little bit about Troy. But my co-host here, Moshe, is going to ask you a little bit about what's going on in New Orleans, because that seems to be the biggest story in the NFL right now. So here he is. Here's Moshe.
Hey, Sanjay, how you doing?
Doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Recent years, the NFL has not been getting some good press. We had the lockout a few years ago, and now we've got the whole thing with Bountygate, as they're calling it. Interesting development is Jonathan Vilma. He's now saying that he's going to be suing the commissioner of the NFL for defamation. Can you tell us a little more about that and how this could go?
Well, this has been something that's kind of the power of the commissioner here, Roger Goodell. Last year you mentioned the lockout, and one of the big sticking points was the disciplinary issues and how that process is played out. And obviously, when you get suspended like Vilma has for the entire year, you can go through the appeals process, but eventually it comes back to who? Roger Goodell. So, you mentioned, there's a big uproar amongst players, and latest news is, the NFLPA president, DeMar Smith, is making headlines again about, this is unfair and the treatment, and they want, the process to be a little bit more transparent with the details, leaking out. Because right now, we just have a game of he said, she said, because we don't know exactly in detail about Vilma's involvement and what the evidence is against him.
Well,
as far as how it's going to play out, right now the power's in the commissioner's hands. So, I wouldn't expect anything to change because that's the deal that they agreed to with the lockout terms. So I don't expect anything to change. But right now it's kind of a story that's not going to go away until or if we ever get the details that come to light as far as the evidence that the NFL has against him.
Interesting you mentioned about the details and the evidence. Roger Goodell just came out saying that in the near future that they're going to be releasing all the details, all the evidence. And as that comes to light, I guess we'll learn more. But
sure.
Is it possible that if, say, Vilma wins this lawsuit, even though it's for defamation, is it possible that Goodell will rescind the suspension? Do you think that's a possibility?
I mean, if he wins, it's highly unlikely. If he wins wins the lawsuit, it could be kind of a game changer in terms of collective bargaining and how that whole process goes moving forward. But there's not too many instances where you can challenge in a situation like this where the players have won. So if it does happen, then you'll see a lot of changes going forward. I don't expect it to happen, but I guess at this point, we'll have to let the legal process play its course.
Right, and moving on to a different part of the whole bounty incident. Recently, Scott Fujita came out, who's now at the Cleveland Browns, of course, and he says that he did not take part in the bounty at all. And he says that it's simply not true. What I find very interesting and is that in the past he's been very for player safety. And that sort of thing. He's generally been like a very upstanding citizen, nice guy. And next thing you know, they're saying that he's been doing this sort of thing. I mean, I personally find it very hard to believe. How could how could they even say that he's doing something like this? I just personally don't believe that it actually happened.
Well, in this case, it may simply be guilty by association. He is a linebacker. Vilma's a linebacker. You had Will Smith mentioned and Anthony Hargrove. Those are the four guys that were suspended. Like you said, Fujita has never done anything to make you believe this, but, the NFL culture on defense, it's a violent sport. And, things like this, it could have been where we don't know, like, when you mentioned the details that could leak out. At this point, it could be something minor since he got the least amount of games. I believe he only got 3 games or 4 games. I could be. I don't recall, but
3 games.
It's just a situation where at this point we don't. He could be, like I mentioned, a guilt by association deal with the rest of the players on that team. And as far as finding it hard to believe, being around some NFL circles and things like that, the bounty word, I believe that's where the strong emotions in this case are coming out, that you can physically try to hurt somebody on purpose, whereas another team, maybe, doing something similar but not trying to hurt somebody. They all, you might get $100 for a big hit or something of that nature, but not, trying to maliciously hurt somebody, as we heard Greg Williams say on the audio. So, there's a lot of open-endedness to this whole situation, and I guess with a guy like Fujita, maybe he should get the benefit of the doubt until the facts come out.
Well, I actually wanted to move on to another lawsuit, the NFLPA. I personally am a big Redskins fan. And the Redskins, of course, got fined about the salary cap issues in a non-salary cap year. And I don't know, how is that even possible? How is that allowed that you can get fined for going over the salary cap when there is no salary cap?
That one puzzles me, to be honest with you. I find, and obviously the Cowboys were the other team. Now, historically, you're talking about two teams that spend the most money or are up in that category. But I'm with you on this one. I don't know how in the world you can, fine somebody as much money as they got fined in an uncapped year. And I'll be interested to see where that goes because, it just by definition, if you don't have a cap, now did they maneuver some deals to kind of take advantage of that? And I think that's the issue. Did they do something to gain a competitive advantage that other teams didn't do, or were not allowed to do? That's the details that I would like to find out that I personally don't know. But if on the surface it does seem a little awkward.
Yeah, just one more question about that lawsuit. Or that situation. John Morrow was he's the head of the committee that looked into the Redskins, the Cowboys, and that seems very odd that the Cowboys and the Redskins, NFC East, and who else is the NFC East? The New York Giants, and
absolutely.
It's quite shocking that was allowed to be done. Somebody from the management of of the Giants was fining other teams in his own division. That seems like an unfair competitive edge, in my opinion.
And it does, and that's something that that you kind of any fan or any person would look at, and I'm sure people in those two organizations are probably going to argue that when the time comes for that. But in the case of John Mara, the Mara family's been in charge of that organization. And, their reputation is pretty ironclad as being, fair and being good for the league and doing things that are in the best interest of the league. But, once again, that does, I can honestly see how that would rub fans and people in those two organizations the wrong way with Mara, having a big say in that. But, once again, that's something that once this process plays out, I'll be interested to see if that issue plays a factor in maybe that that whole ruling staying or being upheld or eventually being reduced or overturned.
What do you think is going to happen there? Do you think it's going to be overturned?
At this point, I'm gonna. The league has been pretty successful in their cases. There's not too many, people that challenge the league and win. So right now, I would think that the rulings are going to be upheld. But as we both just mentioned, something just doesn't look right or feel right about that whole, the uncapped year, and you got the Giants president, that's having a heavy hand in this. It just doesn't look right. But I'm going to roll with the league on this one in terms of anytime you've got, issues with people challenging the NFL, it usually doesn't come out in their favor. So I don't expect this one to either.
Good stuff there. You're back with me, Sanjay. I want to kind of touch up on some college football. I'm a huge Big Ten guy. I spent my youth years, I guess you could say, in Bloomington, Indiana. And, of course, my Hoosiers had new coach Kevin Wilson this year coming over from Oklahoma as the offensive coordinator, really doing a lot with Bradford. But my Hoosiers were horrible last year, and they're horrible every year. So I guess I would say they were really horrible last year. 1-11, lost to North Texas. Just things are looking bad there. The basketball team's back, which is great. But what do my Hoosiers need to do? What does Wilson need to do to build up a program there and a tradition there? Tell us, Hoosier fans. I know we have Hoosier fans listening.
It's very simple. He's got to pound the pavement on the recruiting trail. Indiana, you don't think of Indiana as terms of a talent-laden state in terms of high school football, but the Indianapolis area is very, very, very prominent, and even in their surrounding states in Ohio and Wisconsin and those areas, there's plenty of players there. So he's got to keep, last year he had Gunnar Kiel committed, a big-time high school.
Oh, man, don't remind me. Don't remind me.
Yeah, that's a sore spot. But Kevin Wilson, you mentioned, his success at Oklahoma, and yes, he had Gunnar Kiel committed, and eventually Gunnar Kiel ended at Notre Dame, but I think Kevin Wilson and his work at Oklahoma and what he's done, particularly with quarterbacks, you've got to give him time. That program, as you mentioned, it's been down. It hasn't had a lot of success, but give him some time to work the recruiting trail. Give him some time to get his own players in there. And the Big Ten is a tough league, but you have to make improvements in gradual steps. And yes, 1-11 last year, but I think if you give him time and he works that recruiting trail and holds on to some of those top guys in the state of Indiana, where there is more talent than people would think, I think that given time, I think he'll do well in Indiana. It just has to kind of upgrade the talent, upgrade the facilities, and eventually break through. Hopefully this year, and then going forward to years 3 and 4, if he gets his players, I expect Indiana to at least get into contention for a bowl game. That would be a huge step for that program.
Right. What I personally, when Coach Hep died of that brain tumor, I really think that destroyed the program because they were really on the right track. He just came over from Miami, Ohio. He was famously known for being not only Roethlisberger's coach, but really his mentor, a guy we always counted on. And, of course, Roethlisberger kind of became, an NFL star, 2 Super Bowls. And then after that, Lynch didn't really do too hot. He really struggled for a while. But this team has some, history, tradition. Lee Corso now works for ESPN. Bill Mallory, who spent some time in the NFL, or I believe is still in the NFL. So there's been some good coaches. So you made a great point, Sanjay. There's a lot of great talent. Indianapolis has some of the biggest public high schools in the country. Obviously, we know all the basketball guys that have come out there. Eric Gordon, Greg Oden, Zach Randolph with the Grizzlies. The list goes on. But there's also been a lot of great guys who Ohio State takes and Michigan takes and Illinois even. So you're right. Indiana needs to recruit. I've been to the facilities. Beautiful stadium. Memorial Stadium fits 55,000. They have great facilities for the football team and basketball team. And Kevin Wilson is a great coach. I think the players really like him. Last year, there was kind of a lot of problems with the quarterbacks. They started 3 quarterbacks. But interesting stuff there. Moving on now to the NFL. We have about 6 minutes left. Very interesting story here. Not really a big story, but the Patriots have seemed to go after some of the Colts, and they signed Joseph Adai, which was a very interesting signing. They almost signed Dallas Clark, but he ended up deciding to go to Tampa. So can you tell us your thoughts on the Patriots getting a little tricky and trying to go after these former Colts?
Well, Bill Belichick has a history of taking veteran players that were with other organizations,
absolutely,
and plugging them in. So, Bill Belichick is he's a guy who values veteran players and experience. And you mentioned Joseph Adai. Well, then Travis Green Ellis left them, so they obviously had a hole there at the running back position, and I believe that it's going to be, the Patriots, if you look at their organization, I kind of compare them, kind of like the Spurs in basketball. Their reputation in plugging in guys that maybe other people didn't want. It's second to none. So I wouldn't, he's going to identify players that he feels fits his system, and who can argue with his results. And I think those guys, whatever role that they're going to play, I believe they'll be successful in it. At this point, Bill Belichick deserves that leeway in terms of getting players. So I expect the Patriots, to be business as usual.
Right, and Ben Jarvis Grinnell is former Hoosier. Got to say that before he transferred. He was there for 1 year. Then he left because he realized, what am I doing in Indiana? And went to Ole Miss. And I believe he teamed up with either it was a couple years after Eli Manning, or it was, I don't remember. But he went to Ole Miss. It was another stab in the heart. It's tough. I'll tell you, Sanjay, it's very hard to be an Indiana Hoosier football fan. Things always seem I don't remember if you remember a couple years ago we had that great recruit, and then he decided to go to Florida, and now this thing happened with Gunner, and his brother was on our team, so everyone was saying, okay, there's no way that Gunner's going to, not come to IU because he has his brother, and he's from Indianapolis, or he's from Columbus, which is, close to Indianapolis. And then at the last minute, I'm going to LSU, and then Notre Dame, and it's tough. It's tough. But we'll see what happens with this team. And the Patriots team, I want to talk to you a little bit more about that. They've really upgraded everywhere, especially in their offensive game, getting a guy, as you just mentioned, and getting Brandon Lloyd, who in 2010 had a monster year. So what do you think his contribution will bring to this team?
On a die?
No, Brandon Lloyd.
Brandon Lloyd? Well, this is a guy who's been very, very productive, when at Denver, and now he's reunited with Josh McDaniels.
Right.
So I would expect that would probably put a major, boost to, the Patriots, and I expect to get the better version of Brandon Lloyd given the success that he had with McDaniels out there in Denver. So, once again, another pickup that, it's going to fit their system, and somebody familiar with their offense. With Tom Brady, I want to obviously his record, speaks for itself, and what he's been able to do with different wide receivers and whoever they've been able to plug in. And I think Brandon Lloyd, expect his numbers to go back to what they were in Denver.
Right, and even also Brandon Lloyd last year on the Rams playing with McDaniels, who is the offensive coordinator there. So he's kind of, McDaniels is his boy. I mean, he was with him in Denver, with him in St. Louis, and now, speaking of McDaniels, Bill O'Brien takes over the position at Penn State, and now McDaniels gets his old position back. I was hearing a lot of buzz on some Patriots blogs that they're my team as well. That people are excited about this. I mean, people like Bill O'Reilly, but people really preferred Josh McDaniels, and so they're happy for O'Reilly because he was a class out guy, and now he's getting a head coaching gig, and they're happy for McDaniels because now he's coming back. So, what are your thoughts on that whole little what happened there?
Well, McDaniels, obviously when he was hired was one of the younger head coaches in the history of the game. Right. So, this is the guy that's a very bright offensive mind. And, his success, now don't get me wrong, it shows you that whatever happened in Denver with the whole Tim Tebow experiment and him drafting Tebow, that still does not diminish of what he's been able to accomplish as an offensive coordinator. He's still very highly thought of, highly regarded. And you just go back to when he was with New England before. Their offense is a machine, and he's played a part in that. So, as long as you have Tom Brady back there, and with the weapons that he has, they got Welker done on the franchise deal. They're going to be, business as usual in New England. I expect their offense to be fine. If anything, my worries are with the defense for the Patriots, and they've had a lot of misses in the draft on that side of the ball. But that is what I would be looking forward to if I were a Patriots fan. What can we do to improve the defense? We saw in the Super Bowl they couldn't hold the lead when it mattered the most, and they were at one of the worst defenses in the league last year, and their offense bailed them out a lot. So, as far as McDaniels is concerned, I don't expect the offense to change very much. I expect them to still be one of the 3 or 4 best offenses in the league.
Right, and you made a great point. The offense really did bail them. they won, I think, 13 in a row before the Super Bowl. So the offense carried that team. The defense, I believe that there were a lot of injuries. Patrick Chung was out for a long time in safety. Mayo was out for a while in linebacker. And the cornerbacks are rough to watch. I mean, the cornerbacks have really, if you think about it, really have destroyed this Patriots team against the Giants, of course, back in the days in 08 with, I still can see it in my head and it's painful, Ellis Hobbs and Plexico. Ellis just falling on the ground and Plexico scoring that touchdown. And then this year with Dante Manningham making that ridiculous catch. And then, of course, Tyree's catch. At least Rodney Harrison was guarding him. So I love Rodney. He's a longtime Patriot and a good guy. So we'll see what happens. And unfortunately, we've had so much fun that we're out of time. We had a great time having you on, and we'd love to have you on in the future. How does that sound?
Sounds good to me. Anytime.
All right, Sanjay. Have a good day out there, and thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
All right, that was Sanjay from SiriusXM NFL Radio. Really interesting guy. Knows his college football. Knows his football. Moshe really examined the New Orleans issue with him, and you kind of got to hear Moshe's opinion too, which is nice. We like to do that at Israel Sports Radio. Our next guest, very proud to announce, Mark Serber. This is going to be a great segment, guys, for anyone tuning in right now. 11:01 local time in the United States and 6 o'clock here, because this is going to be a full hour of soccer. Yay. And we're going to have Mark Serber on right now and then Tommy Smith to end the show. So for all soccer fans, soccer nuts, tune in, get some coffee, get some English beer, and come back after the commercial. We'll be back in 2 minutes. It's Mark Serber, on-air talent at Fox Sports International. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
IsraelSportsRadio.com. When the bases are loaded, smart investors don't step back. Find out what they're doing from international money expert Doug Goldstein on the Goldstein on Gelt Show, Mondays at 7 p.m.
We're standing outside El Gaucho restaurant here in downtown Jerusalem, and we see another happy, satisfied customer. Ma'am, what is your name?
Kashet?
And what did you think of El Gaucho restaurant?
Ah, incredible. I'm not much of a meat eater, but when I do eat meat, I go out to El Gaucho. My husband brought me here for an anniversary dinner, and I wasn't crazy about going to a meat place for an anniversary dinner, but the meat was so tender that I had to come back a second time. So here I am for the second time.
Well, you heard it right from the cow's mouth. El Gaucho in downtown Jerusalem.
This is Tamar Cass, and you're listening to Israel Sports Radio.
DJ Venom. DJ Venom. DJ Venom. DJing parties throughout Israel. Birthday parties, weddings, club events, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, and much more. You pick the type of music, and DJ Venom will turn your event to the party of the year. Available Sunday through Thursday. Call 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. That's 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. Book your party today. That's DJ Venom.
This is Dimitri Salita, and you're listening to IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Broadcasting live from Jerusalem. IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Back on Lewis Live, Moshe and Raphael are in the studio today. This is Moshe's first appearance on Israel Sports Radio, so shout out to him. He's done a good job for doing it for the first time. I remember my first time back in the day. It was pretty nervous, nerve-wracking. I guess pretty nervous doesn't sound right. Pretty nerve-wracking, I meant to say. And we're very excited now to have Mark Serber on from Fox Sports International, Fox Sports Soccer, you could say. He does covers a lot of the Mexican Premier League, MLS, but we're not going to talk to him about that. We're going to talk to him about a lot of great things. You'll just have to tune in and see. We're dialing him up right now. And like I said, the next hour is of football/soccer for American fans out there. Hi, am I speaking with Mark?
Yes, you are.
Mark, you're on Louis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I am doing great. We're very excited to have you on. We're very excited to have a soccer show. I mean, I'll be honest with you, we usually do football. We just had someone on from the NFL Network, and we usually focus on football, basketball, baseball, and all that. But it's a treat for me to have you on and then Tommy Smith on. So thank you again so much for joining us.
Oh, of course, thank you. It's always great to get to sit around and talk about soccer. So
I know it's the best, and we had a BBC correspondent on the other day, and I'll tell you, there's nothing like talking soccer or football with a British person. It's just such a blast. You feel like you just want to move over to London and sit down at a pub and watch a match there. It's great times.
That's why I studied abroad in London for that exact same reason. People said, "Oh, you went to London?" I said, "Yeah, I kind of studied, but I really just went and watched football at a different Premier League ground every weekend."
Oh,
so
man.
I know exactly what you mean.
That's Mark, that's hilarious you mentioned that, because I was in London in November visiting a friend who was studying abroad, and people were saying to me, did you go to Big Ben? Did you go to this? Did you go to that? And I was like, no, I actually went to 8 different pubs that supported 8 different teams, and it was the best time of my life, hanging out with Man City fans in London and Norwich fans and Fulham fans, and I love the Premier League. But we're not going to be talking about the Premier League with you. We're going to be doing that with Tommy, I believe. We're going to be talking about the Euro 12, which is coming up in, it's really a couple weeks away. Very excited here at Israel. Unfortunately, our team did not make it. But right now, it's looking like the favorites, you tell me if you agree, are Spain and Germany, really, and maybe a couple other teams right behind them. But I really like Germany. What do you think of this German team?
I actually think Germany will win it all this year. I think that they're the best and most cohesive team, as well as Spain at the moment. But for me, I think with so many players on Barcelona making up Spain's team, teams kind of figured out how to beat Barcelona this season, and I think that Spain plays a lot like Barcelona. I also think, the majority, not only from Barcelona, but Real Madrid as well, that they've had really long and taxing seasons. And with the likes of Carlos Puyol out in the back and David Villa, who's their all-time leading scorer, that unless Torres comes to life and Roberto Soldado can pick up the pieces up front, I just have a bad feeling about Spain in this tournament for some reason. But for Germany, I think that as long as the Bayern players can get over the disappointment of the Champions League final, and players like Gomez and Muller can actually start finishing in front of goal, which they didn't do in the Champions League, then they have such a talented midfield like Mehmet Ozil behind them, as well as a pretty strong back line, players like Philip Lahm, who can really attack and get forward as well, and Schweinsteiger, who I think is just one of the best midfielders. And also you have Miroslav Klose up top, so that if Muller and Gomez aren't firing on all cylinders, he has an incredible scoring record at international level. So I just think this is the year that Germany puts it all together, and that if they play to their best, I don't think they can be stopped, even though they're in such a tough group with Denmark, Netherlands, and Portugal.
Right, and also something that really, really hurts the Spanish team, David Villa will not be playing. That was announced last night. Tough loss for them. He was really big in the World Cup in 2010. And, I agree with you. I really see a lot of problems with this Spanish team. I know, they were coming off winning, pretty much everything, the Euro, the World Cup. But I love this German team. I love Ozil. I love watching him play. It's one of my favorite things to do. And I think this year on Real Madrid, he was surrounded by so many stars that you kind of forgot how talented he is. And I think he's really going to show that in the World Cup, the Euro. And as you mentioned, Miroslav Klose, what an amazing player. A guy who, on Bayern struggled to get on the field. Now I think he's playing in Italy or on a smaller squad. But when he plays for his national team, he brings it all. I think he has over 10 goals in big tournaments, tied with Ronaldo, or if not above Ronaldo, for best of all time. So I think that's great. But yeah, I do want to ask you, the grouping is tough. The group of death, Portugal and Denmark. What do you think of this Denmark team? They seem to be the kind of X factor of the whole tournament.
Well, I think I don't think they're going to actually make it through. I think it'd be a big surprise if they did. But when I was going through, who's going to make it through this group, I went with the easy way out. I said that this group's too close to call for second place. I think Germany will go through. But I think whichever side doesn't go through between Netherlands and Portugal, it's because they're going to get tripped up by Denmark. Denmark's always been one of the most cohesive and well-drilled squads, and it's going to be no different this time around. They have Christian Eriksen, who's a youngster, which is known as the next Laudrup, and that's a pretty big shoes to fill. But they also will have a nice swan song for Dennis Ramadal, who's always very good on the wing. But I think their Achilles heel is up top where, no offense, but if Nicholas Bendtner is your best chance for scoring goals, you're in a little bit of trouble, especially at the international level. So I think that Denmark are going to pose problems for teams. They might sneak in a couple good results, but I don't think they'll go through ultimately. I do think, however, whoever gets pipped to second place, it's going to be because they drop points against Denmark.
Right, I actually agree with that too. I have a friend who's from Denmark and has been telling me, watch out, this team's going to make some noise. But, their group, you can't ignore the group they're in. It's a very, very talented group. One of the groups that I think is the weakest group, but still has a lot of interesting teams. A lot of teams have something to prove. That's Group A with Poland, Greece, Russia, Czech Republic. Czech Republic for a while used to be very dominant. Of course, they have Peter Cech as their goalie. A lot of other great players across the world. Do you think this is going to be the tournament where they kind of bounce back and show that they're, back as world powers? Because they've struggled the last 5 to 8 years.
I don't know. I don't really think that the Czech Republic are going to have a great tournament. I think a lot of it depends on Thomas Rosicky in the midfield. In those golden years, he had Karol Podborski and Pavel Nedved. But now it's up to him. He's given the keys to the midfield, and if he has a good tournament, the Czech Republic will have a good tournament. So I think a lot of it depends on him, and obviously Czech's going to have to be huge in goal for them. But, I obviously see him being better than Greece. They're going to have a tough time against Russia, but I think it's between them and Poland for that second place in Group A, and I just think that home field advantage is going to carry Poland through to the next round.
And Mark, I'm going to be completely honest with you because we do that here at Lewis Live. I absolutely despise Greece. They've ruined Israel the past 60. Every turn they got us out of the World Cup. They took us out of the Euro. We always get to see. We're always in the same group with them because we're so close to them. And since we're really the only team playing with all the European teams out of the Middle East, we always seem to be playing with Greece and Liechtenstein and all those teams that are close to us. This Greece team had that really, what was it, 2000, when did they have that amazing run in the Euro? I think, was it 2004?
It was 2004, and
right.
Kind of the same thing. For me, they ruined 2004 with the football they played. I mean, you have to give them props for playing it, probably the best defensive display you've ever seen, as well as being shrewd with taking your chances on the counterattack and set pieces, but it was just too defensive of a display. I think for them, the biggest thing is that they're going with too many of the old guard for me, and I think it's one tournament too many.
Very good point. And Israel will be playing. I believe they're in Israel's qualifying for the World Cup, and it's time for Israel to make the World Cup. We haven't done it since 1970, but I won't go on a rant with that because that'll just make me sad. But really, Greece has been the team that's kind of destroyed us. A very talented team, a lot of great players who play for all the great squads, Panathinaikos, Olympiakos. So that's great. But I like this Russia team, and I want to get your thoughts on this Russia team, a team that is right now ranked 11th in the world. Kind of, wow, 11th in the world. Who knew? But a lot of talent. So what are you looking forward to watching this Russian squad in the upcoming year?
I'm looking forward to see how Roman Pavlyuchenko and Pavlo Pogrebniak do for them up top. I think both of them, are huge goal scorers. And then Andrei Arshvin has had a tough time of it at Arsenal and hasn't really found his best form. Obviously went back to Russia, but, if he comes alive, then this Russia team is very solid. They have Yuri Zhirkov at the back, who used to play for Chelsea, and they have a good goalkeepers with Akinfeev, who at one time was considered the next, Lev Yashin. So I think that this is a very strong Russia team that I think will breeze through Group A and then could make some noise in the knockout stages. So I completely agree with you. And just like you said, I'm looking forward to watching them as well.
Right. And you kind of feel bad for Poland because I don't know. I don't see much happening there. They, obviously they qualified because it's in their country, but they're ranked in the 60s, 70s in the world. I don't know. It'll be interesting. I mean, you never know with the home crowd what could happen. We kind of saw that in South Africa. When South Africa, what was it, tied against France? That was a huge deal, and that was at home, and the fans went crazy. So you never know. Same, I guess, in the African Cup this year. I believe Equatorial Guinea had some pretty big wins at home. So home fans might be able to happen, right? Or home fans might be able to motivate the team, right?
I think so. I think that they could sneak into the second spot in Group A. I think for me that too much pressure is being placed on Borussia Dortmund's Robert Lewandowski and his other two Polish teammates who play for the German champions. I think a lot depends on the form of Szczesny, who has a shoulder injury but says that he'll be fit in time for the finals. If he's not there, Lucas Fabianski's a Naples replacement, but to me both are prone to make mistakes, so I think they're going to have to be at the top of their game if they're going to sneak out of Group A, and I also think, like I said, Lewandowski's going to have to carry the goal-scoring burden.
Right, and it's funny because Dortmund really had an amazing year this year, just completely dominating Bayern, especially in the Cup final 5-2. I was talking to this with the BBC correspondent the other day and asking her, this German, a lot of the players on Bayern Munich play for the German national squad. Do you think they're going to have a chip on their shoulder in the Euro? Do you think they're going to want to win more than they usually do because they got so close to winning the Champions League that they feel, okay, we have 10 days to put that all behind us. We report to training, and then 20 days later, we're playing in the first match for our country in a huge tournament.
I think that because it's the thing to do.
We seem to have lost Mark. Mark, I think we're losing you. Can you hear us? All right, Mark, if you can hear us, we're going to try and call you back because we're having some communication problems, so we'll call you right back. So stay on the line with us. We'll be back with you in a minute. All right, so we were having some problems there. The internet connection's been very weird in Israel. For all our listeners who are listening in Israel, I'm sure you understand what we're going through. We seem to have a lot of problems with communication. Of course, we're calling Mark, I believe, in California, so it's far away. So we're going to try and reach out to him. Okay, in the East Coast, we're going to try and reach out to him right now. Again, we apologize for that, but this is Louis Live, and things like this happen. But it's okay. We're going to get him back on the line, hopefully with a clear line. We're trying to get a hold of him right now. Hopefully we get in touch. Let's see what happens.
Hello?
Hi, Mark. Are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I think we lost you there for a couple minutes. So could you kind of repeat what you were saying? Because I don't think our listeners could hear it.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. I was thinking that for the Munich players, the best thing is that they have games so quickly. I was saying my 3 days back to school, if I have to doing it, when you have a chance to and correct mistakes right away, it makes it a lot easier to get things. I think that's exactly what's going to happen with this many teams. Definitely have a chip on their shoulder.
Right, and, it was so tough to see them lose. I mean, I'm not the biggest Bayern fan. I wanted Chelsea to win because I'm a big Drogba fan. I lived in West Africa for a year, so I really respect all the guys from Senegal, Ivory Coast, Ghana. So I really want him to win. I knew he was going to leave Chelsea. I mean, everyone knew he was going to leave Chelsea, and he gave an amazing performance in the last 10 minutes and in that penalty kick. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, Drogba has always come a future Chelsea, and this was no exception. For him, it was really redemption from 2008 because he got that red card in extra time against Man United, and he was supposed to take that fifth penalty, not John Terry.
Right.
And, of course, the rest is history with John Terry slipping and Manchester United winning the penalty shootout. So for him, big deal. And for Chelsea, what was it, $2.8 billion to that squad with Roman Abramovich to get the Champions League finally.
Yeah, no, so much money invested. And, it's funny that 2008 team was the manager of that team was Israel's Avram Grant. And, of course, he got sacked for losing that Champions League final, which a lot of people in Israel to this day don't understand because ever since then it didn't ruin his career. He was in Portsmouth for a while when they were going through all that financial struggles. And I believe right now he was in Serbia, but he also just quit from that after 5 months. So that kind of, I don't know, that kind of ruined his career. But it's okay. Roman donates a lot of money to Israel. He's Jewish, of course, so we still love him for that. Going back to that match, though, did you have the feeling that Chelsea were just going to come back, that it just was that Byron just couldn't seem to play a full. I mean, by the end, I just had that feeling in my heart like something's going to happen, something's going to happen, something's going to happen. Finally, it happened. So, did you also think that, Mark?
I definitely did. Gary Neville kept saying it was written in the stars, and I don't necessarily believe that, but you always knew that Chelsea could score if they got that one chance, and that's exactly what they did. I think what Chelsea did so well throughout the game was really squeezed Byron and didn't let them play. And then when Chelsea did get stretched, Byron didn't take advantage of it, playing quick enough when Chelsea stretched out. When Chelsea the game by defending deep, Byron couldn't really do anything. And any time it has that many chances to squander it, you feel like he's going to somehow game at the end.
Right. And like I said, I was very happy to see Chelsea win, and very strange season for Chelsea, winning the FA Cup, winning the Champions League, but not finishing so well in the Premier League. We're not going to really get into that with you because we're going to talk to Tommy about that. But do you think that they did enough to say that they had one of their best years in the last 10 years?
I mean, it's that when it's 30 games that they're worse than it in the Premier League in over a decade, but they showed their great resilience and everything that football typifies in terms of how they play, their desire and determination. At the same time, I think that you can tell that the backroom staff doesn't think it was good enough because a few days after the league and they're already in their lineup. They're going to be let go. I think they're still trying to get rid of the Gold Card, even though the Gold Card did so much to win the two trophies. But the biggest question is, if you win the Champions League final and you are not given the head coaching role, what do you have to do to head coaching for Chelsea?
I mean, yeah, and that Roman's really been known for, I think, 9 managers in his time there. So I don't know. He's kind of crazy. I've heard a lot of weird stories from people in Israel who have met him when he's been here. He seems to be a very unique and interesting guy. We have about 4 minutes left, so I want to get back to the Euro, and I want to talk about Italy's group, because Italy seems to be in a very interesting group there with Spain, and we obviously Spain will probably advance, but they're going to have some competition, I think, from Croatia and Republic of Ireland. What do you think?
I think so too. I think this actually is going to be almost as intriguing as Group B. I think that at the best sense in qualifying, I mean, it's Italy here, but I think that so much of it depends on Mario Balotelli and whether he comes to life, and Sandrine Italia's top.
Right, and of course, Balotelli, a lot of people were, at least in Italy, I was reading some Italian press the other day, people were not necessarily that happy that he was called up to the 23-man squad right now. In Italy, he's not really, people don't like his attitude, and I mean, Italians are like Jewish people, they demand respect, and this guy has a lot of attitude, but you can't argue, Mark, that he's a phenomenal talent and that he will help this team in the Euro. What do you think about that?
Just like you said, if he matures in time and he respects the badge, then he will. And if he goes with the same kind of, loose-free attitude, then he could be a problem. And he, not only on the field, but in the dressing room as well, which is the last thing Italy needs, considering that they finished last place in their last 2 tournaments.
Yeah, and I mean, this Italian team, of course, doing the amazing, winning in 06. I still, when I look back at that team, a lot of talent, but also, in my opinion, very strange that they won because Luca Toni is not necessarily the best striker in the world, if not even probably one of the best in the tournament, in my opinion. And he seemed to really lead that team. Of course, they had Cannavaro, who's now playing, I think, in Dubai or one of those countries. So we'll see what happens with the Italian team. Last team I want to talk about before we let you go, the France national squad. They had a horrible showing in the World Cup. Disgraceful, you could say. They had all the arguments with their manager and all the suspensions, and that seems to be now, I guess you could say it is 2 years ago. People in France have moved on, and they're in a league with they're in a group with England and Sweden. And Sweden has Ibrahimovic. You never know what he's going to do. He's the type of guy who can carry a squad. What are you looking forward for this French team? Do you think they're going to give a valiant effort? Will they advance?
I think France actually won't advance. I think we have a chip on their shoulder. But 2010 is kind of a blessing in disguise because not much has been expected of them. Because of that, the media's kind of gone away a bit, and Laurent has quietly been allowed to go about building his squad. And he's built a very good and solid squad, and Benzema's in good form up top. He's got a good midfield that can supply him, and I think that they might be one of the more quality teams in this tournament that's pushing the established order on the knockout stage.
Right, and I mean, led by Ribéry, who is one of my favorite players, but a lot of criticism with him. Only 7 goals with the French national team in about 60 appearances. That's not that impressive. I mean, you look at guys like Cristiano Ronaldo. I think he has 30 goals with Portugal in 80 appearances. This will be the last question because I'm really curious to hear what you think. I've been talking about this with all our soccer guests. A lot of stars seem to struggle in the spotlight with their national team. Wayne Rooney, Frank Ribéry. I mean, the list goes on and on. Why do you think that is?
I think, too, the weight of expectations, and it's also coming off the season where you've already played about 65 games. I mean, these guys maybe got 3 or 4 days of holiday, and they're right back training again. So I think those are the 2 biggest things, as elementary as they count.
Right, and as you mentioned, 3-4 days of holiday. They played this past weekend, and they'll be playing, I think, or this weekend they'll be playing, and next Wednesday they're starting to do those friendlies before the Euro. And then you got to feel bad for the guys who are going on those tours to America because then they have to report, I believe, the first week of July. So, wow, it's tough to be a soccer player, and I think a lot of people in America who don't know much about football or soccer don't realize that it's something you really have to commit your whole life to. It's not like in the NBA and the NFL where you have the long off season and you can go on all these vacations and all that. In football, you have to be ready to go, and that's maybe why sometimes people retire at a younger age because their bodies, they can't continue the way they do in other sports.
Exactly, and it's not that you're only playing for 10 months of the year, but if you're in the Champions League and other tournaments, you're also traveling to about 10 to 15 different countries as well, and that's a toll.
Absolutely. And, Mark, we got to let you go because we have Tommy Smith on the line. But we really appreciate your time, and we'd love to have you on in 2 weeks to discuss the Euro while it's going on. How does that sound?
It sounds great. Anytime. I'm always available for you guys.
All right, Mark. We'll be in touch through email, and we'll talk very soon about having you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mark Serber from Fox Sports International. We're going to take about a 4-minute break, catch up with our sponsors. And on the other side, it's my pleasure to have Tommy Smith from ESPN. A real treat.
The only all-sports talk network in the Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Body and Soul Gym in the heart of Talpiot. Great machines, excellent staff, and wonderful classes such as Pilates, yoga, and kickboxing. Give them a call at 02-678-8861. Once again, that's 02-678-8861. www.body-soul.co.il. Once again, that's www.body-soul.co.il. That's Body and Soul in the heart of Talpiot, which is great for your body and your soul.
You're already using a credit card every day. Why not feel good every time you make a purchase? When using the HAS Advantage Support Israel Visa card, a percentage of each purchase you make will be donated to your choice of 24 Israeli-based charities, while still earning a reward point for every dollar spent. But wait, these rewards are even better than the standard rewards you get, especially when using them towards Israel travel, with the best conversion rate on El Al's Matmeed frequent flyer program. Earn double points at some of your favorite supermarkets and restaurants in the U.S., as well as discounts all over Israel. If you love traveling and supporting Israel, HAS Advantage is the card for you. Just give us a call toll-free at 1-866-6-ISRAEL. Sign up right now with the code ISR10 to earn 2,500 bonus points. That's 1-866-647-7235. HAS Advantage. Earn rewards. Support Israel. Offer valid for U.S. citizens only. Terms and conditions do apply. When dialing from within Israel, please dial 1-800-200-818.
Israel Sports Dynamics specializes in football consulting, equipment, uniforms, and more. Great brands such as Nike, Russell Athletics, Schutt Sports Products, and many more. Just one call away. With over 30 years coaching experience with university and professional athletes, Harry Hill, owner of ISD, can advise you for all your sports needs. Call 054-581-3248. That's 054-581-3248, or visit our website at www.isdisrael.com. If that's not easy enough, click on the ISD banner on the Israel Sports Radio website and be part of the game.
Are you tired of paying for expensive gym memberships that you don't use? Are you frustrated by not seeing results? It's time for the X1. Israel Gym Systems is proud to launch the X1 suspension and bodyweight training system. Lose weight, build muscle, improve balance, coordination, and flexibility. With your purchase of the X1, you'll receive a free membership to IsraelGym.com and access to our archives of videos and exercise plans. Sign up today at www.israelgym.com and get ready for the new you. Israel Gym X1. Higia Hazman.
Broadcasting live from Israel.
IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Back on Louis Live, it's my pleasure to say that we will be interviewing Tommy Smith in about a minute or two. Before we do, we are going to just kind of recap the show for anyone who's just tuning in right now. At 10 o'clock, we had two guests, at 10 o'clock we had David Dobin from about 10:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then we had at 10:20 local time in America, we had Shalom Simcha Elbert, who talked to us about Israeli basketball. At 10:30, we had at
Sanjay,
right. Sorry about that. A block. Sanjay was a great guest. I don't know why I forgot that. And then 11, we just had our good friend Mark Server from Fox Sports International. And right now, it's really, I love this. I love having the pleasure to interview Tommy. He's a really amazing guy. And he's one of the guys who really likes to talk to all fans. If you write him on Twitter, he'll write you back. He's the type of guy that really loves football. And we are trying to get a hold of him right now. As soon as he's on the line, we will discuss Premier League with him, at La Liga, going forward with some of the teams in Premier League, what they need to do. So we're dialing him up right now. Hi, am I speaking with Tommy Smith?
That's him. Same one.
Tommy Smith, you're on Louis Live and Israel Sports on IsraelSportsRadio.com. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, guys. How's it going?
We're doing great. It's a pleasure to have you on. We just had someone on from Fox Soccer, so now it's great to have someone on from ESPN. And there's so many great things to talk about, Tommy. I remember we talked a lot about Chelsea in our last segment, so we'll get to that a little later. But I want to start off and talk about Man City and what they were able to accomplish this year, and just your opinion on that amazing match against QPR.
Well, it was an amazing match, but I'm not sure that I would go along with a suggestion that Man City accomplished anything when you consider the amount of money they spent, and they ended up winning the Premier League based on goal differential over a very subpar Manchester United team. This was not a good year for United. This was not a good United team, but for QPR giving up a couple of very bad goals after Joey Barton was sent off, Manchester United would still be, I still be the champions. So I would consider that what happened to City this year was, and it would probably rankle some of the City fans, but I think they were very lucky.
You know, Tommy, that's actually a great point now that I think about it. Man U had a lot of strange tie in Israel. We say tecos, a lot of ties, and they lost to a lot of good teams. I would definitely agree with you that this is one of Man U's down years, and the fact that they were 30 seconds, a minute or two away from winning the Premier League when they were having such a down year. That should be something scary for Man City, because Man City had an amazing stretch where they won a lot. Then they struggled towards the end. They were down by those 8 points. And, I agree with you, Tommy. I really do think that they really did get lucky. And speaking of that match, it's just been reported that Joey Barton from QPR got a 12-match ban for kicking Aguero. I just kind of want to get your thoughts. I always hate violence. I just wanted to hear what your thoughts on that specific foul.
Well, if you were watching Press Pass last night, I've come out very much against what the FA have done with Joey Barton. And I don't like violence in the game myself, and either. There's no excuse for it. Joey Barton got caught up in it. I mean, Tevez hit Joey Barton first. There's no question about that.
Right.
Joey Barton retaliated. But what I didn't like was that the FA have come out and suspended Joey Barton for 3 different incidents. You never see that. I mean, if somebody gets a second yellow card and it becomes a card for, going after the referee, it becomes a red card. You don't get suspended for that. You get suspended for the original infraction. And Joey Barton got suspended for 12 games because Joey Barton is Joey Barton. You mean to tell me what Joey Barton did was much more serious than what Suarez did? Suarez got 8 games, Joey Barton gets 12 games. I think the FA have painted themselves into a very, very bad corner here, that if something bad happens to John Terry and he's found guilty by the courts, what are the FA going to do then? I mean, how long will the suspension be for John Terry? And what are they going to do next season when somebody kicks a player and as he goes off, he pushes another player? Is he going to get 8 games instead of 4 games? So I just think it's a very bad precedent. I would never be in the wailing corner for Joey Barton, saying that Joey Barton was victimised, because Joey is his own worst enemy. But the overall situation is that they've never done this before, and I just think it's a bad precedent to set.
Right, and it's true. Tevez did really start it. And 12 games, Suarez, really what he said, that's something that you're just crossing the line. I know a lot of people argue that in South America, people say, but whatever, that's not okay. And especially in a country like Israel where we deal with so much stuff like that. But that's interesting. 12 games when just for the kick and the additional other 2 things. And Suarez only 8 games. So do you think, has there been any news about whether Barton will try and appeal this or try and fight it?
Well, I don't think that there's going to be any. I don't think there'll be any appeals or anything else. I know the Players Association have said that they're working with Barton, that he does have an anger management problem, and they have been trying to get him, and they feel that he has made huge progress. And if you listen to what Joey Barton said after the game as to why he fought the other 2 guys, the reason why. Okay, he was getting red carded for giving somebody an elbow, but the reason why he tried to get Aguero and somebody else involved in it was that he was trying to do it for the good of the team. He was hoping that they would get a red card too by reacting to him, and that QPR would not have to play with 10 men. So, I mean, there was a method in his madness, as we say in Ireland. He was certainly trying to achieve something else. And then the FA have come out and said, okay, you got 4 games for the elbow, you got 4 games for the attempted headbutt, and you got 4 games for whatever the rest of it was. So I just think it's, I would have, 6 games, maybe the same, 8 games would be fine, but I just think they went over the top of the 12 games.
Right. I agree with you. Speaking of that QPR match, I really want to get your thoughts on it, because it was such a crazy match. After Cisse scored that goal, which was just a huge mistake in the City defense, what were your thoughts? What were you thinking? Did you think, from when Man City was tied or when they were down, did you really think they're going to come back and win this?
No, I didn't. I'll be honest. I thought that United had the championship won, you know. I had been saying all along that United didn't actually lose the championship on the last day. My thoughts are that United lost the championship against Everton when they shipped 2 goals in the last 10 minutes, leading 4-2. That was the losing of the championship. But then I thought, with the way City were going and the way QPR were going, that it was a reprieve. And even when Balotelli struck the first one and the goalkeeper saved it, I said, well, that's the season over. And then all of a sudden the ball is in the back of the net and you're saying to yourself, well, there's no more time for any more goals, and the draw was no good for City. They needed to win, and I just couldn't see that there was another goal coming. And incidentally, you know, this is something that I've had I take a lot of flack over. You know, everybody talks about Ferguson time. You know, the referee hands up a sign when Manchester United are playing that says 5 minutes additional time. Everyone says, oh, the referee influenced them, the referee influenced them. Well, I suppose now we have to say there's Mancini time too, because he held up a sign that was 5 minutes and played almost 7 minutes additional. So, you know, what goes around comes around, I suppose. But to me, Manchester United lost the title the day they played Everton when they gave up the 2 late goals.
Right, and but still at the same time, this is just 1 year, and Sir Alex kind of said that in the exit interviews for the team. He said, "No, I'm happy for Man City, for our rivals across this, you know, but at the same time, we have our history. We'll let them celebrate this one, but we'll be back next year, and we'll be strong next year." I want to talk to you about some rumors. Some transfer rumors of Zlatan Ibrahimovic maybe coming to City. Do you think that's a good fit? Do you like that? What are your thoughts, Tommy?
That's not happening. There's absolutely no way that AC Milan are going to let him go. I mean, AC Milan have already said there's 2 untouchables, you know, Ibrahimovic and Silva. I mean, this is the silly season. I mean, Dave Whelan is out this morning, the chairman of Wigan, saying that Alex Ferguson has told him that next year is going to be his last year. He's not going to manage anymore after last year. Whelan's also saying that Martinez is in Miami to meet with John Henry over the Liverpool job. Maybe he is. I mean, maybe they have headquarters in Miami too. But you know, most people know that John Henry and company, they have their headquarters in Boston. So much of this stuff now, you know, for the next until when the Euros are over, there will be nothing only, you know, real bull. Everybody has to print papers. Everybody has to fill time on the radio and television, and there will be a million things made up. But I would be very surprised if Ibrahimovic just goes anywhere. He wouldn't be a good fit with City anyhow.
Right, that's what I was thinking. I know I've been reading that a lot, and I completely agree with that. The next thing I want to ask you is staying with City, Balotelli. Do you see his future there? Do you see Mancini keeping him? What do you see there?
Yeah, I don't think. I just have a feeling that Mancini is not going to keep him. You know, last night I described Balotelli as he could be one of the great players in the game. I mean, he has everything. He's got quickness, he's got strength, he's got a fantastic shot, he reads the game well, he's got a great finishing touch, and he knows how to get into position to make a finish. The only thing that he lacks is common sense. If he could ever get himself a bit of common sense and put it together and play his football and forget about the rest, hey, he would be a great player. But I don't see his future with Man City. I think he's going to go back to Italy. I think maybe one of the reasons why he did some of the stuff that he did last year in Manchester was that he doesn't want to be in Manchester, and he's actually, you know, he's putting himself on a path to get out of Manchester by becoming one of those players that everybody wants to avoid.
Right, and he, of course, the Italian team just announced that he will be on there right now in the preliminary 23-man squad. We'll see what happens with that. Tommy, of course, everyone knows you're from Ireland by your accent and by just you're Tommy Smith. Everyone knows that, but you are in America right now, and a lot of people forget that. I believe you live there most of the year, working for ESPN. So I wanted to ask you, as a person who's around a lot of American soccer fans, what has it been like? With the buzz around Clint Dempsey and what he's been able to achieve in the Premier League this year with Fulham with 17 goals.
Yeah, for some reason Clint Dempsey doesn't get the kind of accolades that, in my opinion, he should get. Most Americans realize that he's a very good player and he's a very hard-nosed player. But, you know, you still talk to Americans about soccer. It's still Landon Donovan, and maybe even Tim Howard gets more accolades than that Dempsey does. But I think they're slowly coming around to it, and I think maybe this World Cup qualifying, Dempsey might be the man to lead the US, and it might change things. because in my opinion, he's a great player. You know, when he was with the New England Revolution, and
Right.
I'm a good friend of Steve Nicol, who was the manager of the Revolution at the time, and he's probably the man who set Dempsey on the way, the kind of a player he is. Steve would tell me that Dempsey, if you said to him, "There's a stone wall over there," Dempsey would say, "Do you need me to run through it?" I mean, that was the kind of attitude he had.
Yeah, and that's funny, the thing you mentioned about Howard maybe getting some more publicity and more attention. In my opinion, it seems that every time there's these rumors that Landon Donovan's going to go over for a loan to Everton, that's more in the news. I mean, looking at some headlines in American soccer media outlets, that's kind of been bigger news than Clint Dempsey, because Landon Donovan is still the face of United States soccer. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, he keeps saying he's going, but, you know, one of these days, Landon Donovan is going to find out a fact of life that comes to the rest of us, and it comes to us very soon. You're too old to be going there. You know, at some stage, Landon Donovan is going to have to, you know, he has never made a decision, and I'm not, you know, I've always said that I'm in Landon Donovan's corner. If Landon Donovan is happy enough with life in Southern California, where the weather is good, the women are beautiful, the living is good, what's wrong with it? But, I mean, if that's his goal in life, that's up to him. I mean, he had opportunities to commit himself to go play in Germany, and he didn't do it. Okay, he's had a couple of loan spells in Everton. He's also had the opportunity maybe to prolong or even make it more than a loan spell, and he hasn't done it. So if he doesn't do it soon, there won't be any doing it, because Landon Donovan will be too old to be going to play in the Premiership. So I would say these are a couple of very, very key years now in Landon Donovan. And if Landon Donovan was listening, he would be totally mad that I'd be even thinking that he was getting old. But, you know, you got to look in the mirror sometime too. You know, age waits on no man, and it passes very quickly.
Right, and you are in America, so I wanted to ask you, are there any, I was in London a couple months ago, and my favorite thing about being there was going to all the pubs and going to you know, I remember sitting with Norwich fans, I remember sitting with Fulham fans, and people really embrace you. They come up to you. I told them I was from Israel and I was visiting the city, and one of them bought me a beer, and we just started talking, and it was amazing. Do you get are there any pubs or bars in America that you go to for that kind of fun?
I would say there's probably more pubs in America than there are in London. I mean, you could come through New York here on a Saturday morning, and there are several hundred Irish, English pubs which carry all the games and which are full, packed to the door. You can't get into them. And it's the same in every, you know, the thing about the United States is that it's made up of a population of so-called foreigners. Yeah. And, you know, you get a lot of Irish, you get a lot of English, but you also get a lot of other ethnics, like a lot of Italians, Portuguese. I mean, if you go into the north end of Boston, I mean, you will find now during the Euros that the houses will be decorated. Mm-hmm. Even here where I live in Queens, if Italy are doing well in if Italy are doing well in the European Championships, you will see the houses here will have flags hanging out of them. So this concept that America doesn't care about soccer is strictly a media concept. When you get down to the reality of it, America cares very, very much about soccer. And, you know, if you go to any of the, when you get out into mainstream America, when you go to North Carolina, South Carolina, places like that, you won't find those things. But when you go to New York, Boston, Philadelphia, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, I mean, there are thousands of outlets where these games are shown.
Interesting. And I'll tell you, Tommy, I grew up in Bloomington, Indiana. Jerry Yeagley, one of the greatest college soccer coaches at Indiana University, was there. So one of the I think the best soccer town in the Midwest. There's an amazing soccer bar there called Michael's Uptown Cafe, and they always show the games. And for me, you know, being an Israeli in America, it was always great to know that there were people in a community in Indiana that really cared about football, because, you know, being an Israeli boy who didn't really know much about the NFL or the NBA, it was great to be able to talk to people and all that. So I agree with you. It's not true that everywhere in America people don't like soccer. You can take Bloomington, Indiana for an example, because they're huge soccer fans. They watch every match. They have people coming in from all over the state to watch the match. So good point there. Tommy, back to the Premier League. I really I wanted to get your thoughts on the job that what Newcastle was able to accomplish this year, really having an impressive campaign towards, I guess, the end. They kind of slipped up. But could you talk a little about the younger Cisse? Of course, there's a Cisse on QPR, but I want you to talk about the addition of the younger Cisse to Newcastle.
Well, when you look at their season, he turned their season around. Unfortunately, it just wasn't turned around enough, They still have a bit to go, and I think the struggles for Newcastle now will be to, keep the players they have, because obviously a player like Cisse is going to be in high demand, and that'll be the problem now. And when you look at the economic situation around the world now, and you say to yourself, if somebody comes knocking on your door and offers 25 million for a player, there's very few clubs of the Newcastle ilk that's going to be able to turn that down. So I think, that a lot of these clubs are going to be very vulnerable now to players being taken away from them. And Newcastle, whilst they had a fantastic season, it was amazing. It was an amazing season for them. I just don't see that they're going to have the same kind of an impact next year.
Right. And, I mean, for our listeners in America or Israel that don't know, Newcastle has an amazing support system. Their fans are amazing. Their stadium's amazing. I have a lot of friends that have been there. And a lot of people don't realize that, maybe who aren't huge soccer fans, because they're not always, in the top 2, top 3. But they have a great support system. So it's a great place to go. Another place, of course, that has a great support system, I'm going to talk about my Arsenal team, who really had a nice spurt at the end of the season to get into that third place, go above the Spurs. A lot of people are very worried, Tommy, that Van Persie's going to leave. A lot of people are saying there's no way he's going to leave. So what does Tommy Smith think about all this?
Oh, yeah, I think that Van Persie is going to leave.
Oh, no.
I think that, my mum used to always say, far away fields always look greener. And I would think in Van Persie's case that unless something drastic happens, that all of a sudden they do get an announcement that Arsenal have signed this player or that player or something like that. I just think that Van Persie would like to win something now, and
Right.
I'm not knocking Arsenal fans, and Arsenal fans always seem to think that I'm knocking them. I'm not. It's just that a team of their caliber that hasn't won any silverware in such a long time, it's very hard for a player to be loyal to a team like that. I mean, Van Persie has no loyalties to Arsenal. I mean, he's a Dutchman. He's born in Holland.
Right.
He came to Arsenal to play football to win things. He hasn't been winning the things. And if he gets offers from other clubs who will pay as much money as he gets at Arsenal, I mean, people keep all these, fans, and I'm sure you're the same. When you look at your team, you feel loyalty to the team, but the problem is that most fans don't understand that players really don't care. It's like we work for a company, we get paid for doing a job, we do the job, we do it well, we get paid well. Hey, that's great. I mean, and an awful lot of football players are the same. It's a job for them. They're making £150,000 a week, which we really can't understand because we would never have that kind of money in our hands. But if you're at Arsenal and you get an opportunity, Barcelona come knocking on your door, I mean, can you blame him?
No, I mean, you're right. It's as an Arsenal fan, though, it's tough because this guy's been really the face of the team, and he's never complains. I love what he's done for Arsenal, and if he goes, then I hope he goes somewhere where you can make a lot of money, and I guess most importantly, be successful and be able to compete. Speaking of Arsenal, though, we did get Podolski, and Podolski, I believe, has been trying to leave Germany for a while. He was happy with Germany, but wanted to move to a bigger squad. So I'm happy that we signed him. I kind of want to get your thoughts on Podolski coming to Arsenal next season.
Well, everybody was very happy when Arshavin was signed, and everybody said, okay, Arshavin can be the man who's going to turn things around, and Arshavin will be the man to do this and do that based on the European Championships. Podolski will be a good player. He probably scored a lot of goals, but if you look at the Arsenal team and you put the Arsenal team down on paper and say to yourself, okay, if I want to win the championship next year, is the one move I'm going to do, is the one move that I have to make is to sign Podolski? I don't think you would think so. I don't think even the most avid Arsenal fan would say this man is going to turn the season around. Yeah, he'd be a great addition. Yeah, he will do a lot of good things. But Arsenal have problems, deep problems. I mean, Arsenal don't have a midfielder that can hold the game up. Arsenal never have had really a midfielder since Patrick Vieira was sold. Arsenal have problems at the back. They give up too many easy, soft goals. So whilst Podolski is a good buy, he's certainly not the end of Arsenal's woes.
Yeah, and I mean, it'd be amazing, let's say, if Van Persie does decide to stay. I hope that happens. You're saying it's not, and I'm probably going to believe you. But we'll see what happens there. And then Podolski does join. That'd be nice to see. Someone who I think all Arsenal fans will agree with this, Alex Chamberlain, the 18-year-old, had, I believe, something around 15 to 20 appearances this year, only 18 years old. Really a guy that a lot of people are excited about for the future. Do you buy the hype, Tommy?
Yeah, I mean, certainly he has all the equipment to be a great player, but my problem is, when you get as old as I am, you get a kind of jaded with all the 17 and 18-year-olds who came along and were going to be stars, and very few of them ever do live up to be the star quality. I mean, I do say to myself, okay, somebody who makes 20 appearances in a season, how good is he? I don't think you can really start to understand how good a player is until he's making 40 appearances in the season and he's getting hit week in, week out. It's then you start to see how good the player is. And whilst this man certainly looks like he has a tremendous amount of ability and looks like he has all the tools, but there's many a garage around the country that has the finest set of tools in it, but the man that's inside couldn't fix a car if his life depended on it. So, sometimes with these young players, the hype, they start reading the newspapers themselves and they start believing what the papers are writing about them, and sometimes it's the very worst thing that can ever happen. It seems like the guys who come on the scene and do the job are a player like Cisse. Nobody had ever heard of him. All of a sudden he comes and he bangs in goals. The guys who all the hype are about, as a rule, don't make it. I'm hoping he will, but hey, we'll have to wait and see.
Right, and speaking of another youngster who's rumored to make the jump to Europe, Neymar from Brazil, who I believe now, it seems like yesterday he was 16, 17. I think he's now 20. Kind of reminds me of the hype with Alexander Pato. His injuries have really destroyed him, but this guy, people are saying, is the next superstar and the next this and that. You think he's 20 years old. I think he's trying to leave. I believe he's on Santos now. I think he's trying to make a jump. What do you think of him, Tom? Have you gone in to watch him a little bit on film?
Yeah, he's a very good player. Again, he's probably going to be his own worst enemy because he has this bit of flair. Mm-hmm. And I think what you just said about Pato, I think that's a very good parallel because, Pato was supposed to be whatever. And now, I mean, the big news from AC Milan is that Pato has recovered and Pato is okay. I mean, AC Milan had to issue a statement like that yesterday. I mean, that's the danger with these young players. When you play in a league, like we had a great example of it here, and I mean, all anybody has to do is think about the Freddie Adu case and think about what Freddie Adu was supposed to do and what Freddie Adu was supposed to be, and what did he do? He did very little. He's playing with Philadelphia Union at the moment. So Neymar, certainly, if you listen to all the gods of football, and including Pele and company like that, where Pele will tell you that Neymar is better than Messi, Neymar certainly is a player who can play football. Again, it'll be interesting to see if he does make the jump, and the feeling is that he may make the jump, and the feeling is that it's going to be either Barcelona or Real Madrid. And he certainly is a man who I think will be fit to live up to the hype.
Okay, and I'm with my co-host here who wants to ask you one question about Chelsea.
Yeah, what's Chelsea going to be looking like next year with Drogba gone and Torres looking like the main man up front?
Well, all I hope is that your listeners listened to me when I was on the last time and I told that Chelsea had a chance of winning the Champions League. A lot of people in America wanted me to be committed because they thought that I had no clue about what I was talking about. I was very adamant that Chelsea had a good chance against Barcelona, and I was more adamant. In fact, I gave even the right score last weekend for the Champions League final, and I was paying 28-1. I know you guys don't gamble, but that's okay. Next year, Chelsea will be in shambles. This will be shambles for Chelsea because they really, Drogba is leaving for sure. I mean, he's issued several statements this week that he's going to leave. And, I mean, Torres is now saying that he's very unhappy with Chelsea. Torres actually coming out saying that he's unhappy with Chelsea. So, I mean, Drogba has said Torres is the man that can fill his boots. I believe maybe the two of them wear the same size because that's the only way he's going to fill Drogba's boots. Torres is just not the man to lead Chelsea into the future. So right away you have a problem there. John Terry is just gone by it. There's all kinds of problems at the back. I'm not sure Michael Essien, if Michael Essien would come back as strong as he was a couple of years ago, that would be good news for Chelsea. All this stuff about who's going to manage Chelsea, I mean, Abramovich is now saying today that Di Matteo isn't framed to be the manager, as he rightfully should be, a man that leads you to the Champions League.
Absolutely.
He's saying maybe that he give him a year to prove himself. I'm not sure that you can prove yourself any more than going out and winning the Champions League. It was what Abramovich wanted all the time. But I can see bad things for Chelsea next year unless they sign a couple of very capable players.
And, you know, Abramovich is one of these guys who demands, or I don't want to say perfection, but I think he's cuckoo. He's fired or sacked, you could say.
Rich cuckoo.
Rich cuckoo. 9 managers. And you know what, Tommy, I have a lot of hard feelings against him because he sacked Israel's Avram Grant the year that...
I have a lot of hard feelings for that, too, because I thought that Grant could have been the manager that could have led Chelsea to several Premier League titles, and maybe, I mean, a man who, you know, when I look back at Avram Grant and I say, okay, I was in Moscow the night it happened, if John Terry doesn't slip down and miss the penalty kick, Chelsea win the Champions League, beat Manchester United, how could you fire Avram Grant? So because of John Terry's slip, you're going to fire Avram Grant, and that's basically what happened.
Right, and since then, I hate to say it because I love him, and he's really the face of Israeli soccer with Benayoun in Europe and in the world. He went to Portsmouth, and there was all those problems with the financial stuff. And then he went, I think he was in Serbia now, and he just resigned after 5 months because he lost to the rival team. So he's been through a lot since that happened. And I remember reading the newspapers in Israel, being just seeing people were shocked. I mean, people didn't think that, you know, getting that close to losing the Champions League final, you'd be sacked. And if you look at all the managers after him, he was, I mean, I don't want to be biased, but he was probably the best.
Yeah, he was.
Okay.
He was. In my opinion, Avram Grant was a brilliant manager. Should never have been fired, and what Abramovich did to him was an absolute shame.
Okay, well, it's good to hear that. We're on with Tommy Smith from ESPN. We have a couple minutes, Tommy. Is that okay with you? Are you good for a few more minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, so the Yids, the Spurs I'm talking about, we have a lot of big Spurs fans probably listening right now in Israel because, as I mentioned, they're the Yids, and everyone knows that. They had a weird season, an amazing stretch, and then they completely fell apart. A lot of people argue because, you know, no one knew what was going to happen with Harry, and was he going to be the manager, and blah, 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 blah. They ended up finishing in 4th place, and Chelsea actually knocked them out of the Champions League because they won. So what do you think is next for the Spurs?
Well, that's a big question at the moment. I mean, Harry went from being the manager of England and the manager of a third-place team to be the manager not of England and to be the manager of a team that's not going to be in the Champions League.
Right.
But there are big rumours around England yesterday and today, and the rumours are that Liverpool want to actually talk to Harry Redknapp.
Ooh.
And, you know, they feel that Harry Redknapp would be a good fit for Liverpool. Again, Spurs are basically like Chelsea. I think they're going to have a few problems next season because, you know, to be honest, where Spurs finished was probably where they should be. I think when they were 2nd and 3rd, I think they were playing above themselves, and they were just getting results that really they shouldn't be getting. They were just out of the ordinary, these results they were getting. The rumours are now that Modric is definitely going to leave. That will be a huge loss to Spurs because, I mean, he's a maestro in the midfield. So, again, an awful lot will depend on this transfer season as to what happens to Spurs next year, but I can't see them being any better than 4th.
Right, I know there's been a lot of rumors that the Spurs are trying to keep Emmanuel Adebayor there. Of course, he was on loan from Man City, had 17 goals, had a pretty impressive campaign, had to go away for a little bit. Or no, excuse me, that was Yaya Toure who left City. My apologies. But do you think that he's going to want to stay there? Is Emmanuel going to want to stay with Tottenham? Is he going to try and get more money? Is he going to try and go back to City? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I wouldn't think that he'd go back to City. I don't think that there's any room for City at him. I just don't think that he fits into City's plans, and he certainly sounds like he's enjoying life in London. I suppose if you have to make a choice, no disrespect to Manchester or no disrespect to London, if you want to stay in London or go to Manchester, I think you might decide to stay in London if everything is equal, if he's getting the same money, and he got a lot of playing time, and, you know, he became a big fish in a small pond, where if he goes back to Man City, he becomes a small fish in a big pond. So I think his future would be with Spurs. I guess it'll just be a question of everybody working out the money involved.
Right, Tommy, I know you said that you foresee or foreshadow a lot of problems with Chelsea and the Spurs. I got to ask you, if you think that, what do you think of Liverpool's future?
Liverpool, I'm not even sure they have a future at this stage. Their future is very much way in the future. Yeah, I'm being facetious, obviously.
Right.
I mean, Liverpool have huge, huge problems. I mean, Liverpool need at least 4 or at least 5 players to get themselves back into where, when you talk about the big 4 of the Premier League, you couldn't possibly think now that Liverpool are part of that big 4. I mean, some of their displays this year was absolutely horrendous. The fact that they fired Kenny Dalglish, okay, they fired Kenny Dalglish, but I think something that's very telling is they fired him like 3 weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago, maybe even a little more than 3 weeks, and they still don't have a manager. They're still looking for a manager. I mean, it's almost like it's a pen. Nobody wants to take that Liverpool job. Nobody seems to be stepping forward. They're saying, okay, that Martinez from Wigan may get the job, but the question is, he have a resume that's good enough to manage Liverpool? I mean, that's a major overhaul needed, and it's a major club to manage.
Right, and a lot of pressure from the fans of Liverpool, because of course Everton finished above them in the standings this year, and I was speaking to a Liverpool fan the other day, and they were that was such a painful thing for them to have to keep looking at the standings and see Everton above them. Of course, for our listeners who don't know, Everton is in Liverpool, in the city of Liverpool. Tommy, we're going to let you go with this question. Your Republic of Ireland team will be participating in the Euro this year, which I'm sure is very exciting for you. You haven't qualified since '88, and you will be participating this year. So what are your thoughts for your team? Will you be watching all the games and supporting them, and what should we expect?
Well, ESPN have all the games in the States, so we're lucky in that respect.
Okay.
And, of course, Ireland played Croatia the first game.
Right.
That, to me, is the key. The key for Ireland, that's the European final for Ireland, Croatia. They need to get 3 points against Croatia. Next up comes Spain. An awful lot depends on what happens between Italy and Spain the first day. But I could see Ireland going into the last day, and maybe a draw between Ireland and Italy would be suffice to put Ireland and Italy through. I think Spain are going to hurt this year. No David Villa is going to be a huge problem for them now that Puyol is out at the back, and Iniesta and Xavi look like tired players that just don't have that jump to their step that they had before. So I'm saying that Ireland and Italy will come out of that group, and overall I think this is Germany's tournament to win. The Dutch will probably give them a run for it, but we all know the history of the Dutch. To find a way to beat themselves. They're not necessarily ever beaten by anybody else, but they find a way to beat themselves, and I think this will be no different. So I think that finally, after picking Germany in the Euros the last time around, the World Cup the last time, I think the third time will be the charm. I think Germany will win this Euros.
Right, and Tommy, I got to warn you, I'm very familiar with this Croatia team. Israel played them twice in a week in the qualifying for the Euro, and Croatia and Greece. Really, Croatia was a team that eliminated us. A very talented team. Played in Israel, actually. I think I went to the match. I don't remember. It was a year ago. And really kind of took a knife and put it in Israel's hearts because, of course, we didn't qualify. So watch out for this Croatia team. They have a lot of talent.
Yeah, I know they have. And Trapattoni will be well prepared for them. Believe me, he'll have the Irish boys G'd up.
Right. Tommy, it's been a pleasure. We really always enjoy having you on. We'd love to have you on again in the future if you're interested.
Yeah, sure. No problem. You know where to contact me, and we'll work it out, all right?
Sounds good, Tommy. Have a great day out there in the East Coast.
Yeah, take care of yourselves, guys. Pleasure being on with you, and to everybody listening on this station. Have a great Euros. Enjoy it. There'll be some great football in it.
Okay, thank you very much, Tommy.
Thank you.
Tommy Smith from ESPN. Amazing to talk to him because he'll always tell you exactly how he feels. Don't you think, Moshe?
Yeah, he's not too afraid to say what he's on his mind.
No, and that's something that as a guy who lived in America, I'll tell you, people don't do that. People always say what they think people want to hear, and people in America are worried about what people think, and et cetera, et cetera. Tommy Smith, I love him. His personality is amazing. You can feel his presence just doing an interview with him. You can feel like he's in the room talking to you, and he's one of my idols, and it's always amazing for me to interview him. And Moshe got to ask a question there. So how was that like for you, Moshe?
That's pretty cool. Somebody that you see and hear on ESPN, and to be able to ask him a few questions, it's great. It's a great opportunity.
Absolutely. And like I said at the end of the interview, love to have Tommy on again. It's his second time on the show. We're going to try and have him on during the Euros, because really after the Euros, there's not much in the summer. Of course, a lot of the the European teams will make these tours in Chicago, Toronto, Vancouver, LA, Baltimore, right? DC, I think, or if that's what you're referring to. I know that Roma are coming. Real Madrid are coming. One of the Manchester cities is coming. A lot of other teams that maybe people don't know that much about from Europe, from Poland. I think a team from Germany. A lot of teams are coming, so it's going to be very exciting. That's it for the show tonight. We had a great show. I want to thank everyone for coming on the show today. We started off at 10 o'clock with David Dobin from New York, talk some Yankees baseball, Mets baseball, and Red Sox baseball. At 10:20 we had Shalom Simcha, and who did we have at 10:30?
Sanjay Kirpalani.
Sanjay Kirpalani from Bleacher Report and NFL Network on Sirius XM. At 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. local time, we had Mark Serber from Fox, which was really great. And then we finished off a great 36-minute segment with Tommy Smith. A lot of fun there. We want to thank all our guests. Next week, we're having guys like Zach Rosen from Penn. I don't know if you've heard of him, Moshe, a guy who people are saying the next Jeremy Lin. Jewish. If he doesn't get drafted in the NBA, hopefully he'll get picked up. If doesn't get picked up, he's coming to Maccabi. Go Maccabi. They're playing tonight at 9 o'clock. I'll be watching that. Maccabi against Ashdod in the final championship of the Israel Domestic League. Next week, Derek Sharp, one of the greatest players in Maccabi's history. Some radio talk show host from Philly. Henry Lawrence, former NFL player. A lot of great guests. Stay with us. That's it for tonight from Moshe and Rafi. Good night.